Item number 5, CARE, Wellness, and Cornerstone presentation. Mr. Sears.
Yes, thank you. We are very excited tonight as part of teaching and learning to continue work that we're doing in our district with our strategic initiatives around our cornerstones. And so last month we presented on our culture of learning and our personalized learning cornerstone where Connor Bergman spoke. Tonight we are very fortunate to have 2 outstanding teachers in Forest Hills and a student at Turpin High School that are going to be sharing how we're moving work with our cornerstone of relationships and wellness forward. And those folks are going to share with you kind of some of the work that we've already started with this. The relationship and wellness cornerstone actually has 2 teams led by our project leads for our CARE Cornerstone is Melissa Buccalow, and our project lead for our wellness team is Betsy Ryan. And they're going to they'll share with us a little bit about the work that we've begun in that department and how that moves forward. So at this time, we'll introduce Melissa Buccalow, and she will take us through our CARE Cornerstone.
Thank you, Greg. Good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to be here this evening to give you an overview of the CARE Cornerstone and the work that we've been doing. The CARE Cornerstone is aligned to our district strategic vision, honoring the importance of the common focus that we have across the district for our work. Susan, if you could. Oh, perfect. Thank you. And for our district strategic vision under the relationship of wellness, CARE is the first one up there. All staff will demonstrate cultural competence to ensure success for all students. So we are working across the district as our strategic alignment for this vision. The inception of CARE, so providing you with a framework of history, the inception of CARE began 2 years ago as an outgrowth of our strategic plan in conjunction with an assembled advisory group. And on this advisory group was community members, district administrators, Board of Education member, teacher, and principals. This advisory, if you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. This advisory created the acronym that captures the work and the purpose of CARE Cornerstone. The work of CARE is anchored in the following components: competency, having an awareness of one's own cultural identity and views about diversity, and proactively working to understand others' cultures of students, staff, and their family. Advocacy, working to evaluate policies and practices, reform our schools as needed to ensure equity of voice, change attitudes and behaviors to change outcomes for our community. Relationships, developing relationships with and among our families, students, staff, and community. And engagement and empowerment. This is intentional focus on ensuring all students find relevant and meaningful connections to learning, because we know that cultural relevance gives us perspective, engages our attention, and increases our capacity for learning as it assists us in interpreting and inferring meaning, enabling the depth of understanding and the interest that is needed. Last year, 2018-2019, we partnered with Katrice Quitter from Hamilton County Education Service Center to build our collective work through the 1 degree shift. The 1 degree shift is understanding race, class, culture, and poverty in our classrooms. This work was intentional to build the capacity of our leadership and design teams, that is our CARE Cornerstone team, around the collective understanding of many facets of the work, and this was including privilege, race, class, implicit bias, microaggressions, belonging, inclusion, diversity, and equity. This year, we are continuing our partnership with Katrice Quitter at Hamilton County Educational Service Center in alignment with our district strategic vision. And our work is also aligned to meeting individual school building needs with a collective focus on beginning work with our adults. It is our heart work that we are calling it. Additionally, as we lean into this work and the work of our other cornerstones, our cornerstone of collaboration, our cornerstone of innovation, and our cornerstone of learning, there is a cross-pollination that is emerging organically, and CARE has a connection to all the work that we are doing. The work of CARE provides a foundation of inclusive understanding and an understanding of all, ensuring everyone has a seat at the table, a long-term commitment that we are committed to create a sense of belonging and welcome with all of our students, staff, community partners, and families. And today joining me is Kim Montgomery, who is an English language art educator at Air Elementary, and Mr. Jeremy David, who is an educator of music at Maddox. And these are two of our phenomenal CARE Cornerstone leaders who are going to share with you the work that began with our buildings on November 5th through a district professional development day. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Good evening. I'm Kim Montgomery. I started this journey with Katrice. This is my actually third year with her because I was part of the advisory from the beginning, which was a very small group, I think about 9 of us, and it's grown over the years, which has been really nice. But Katrice did a 3-day workshop at Hamilton County called 1 Degree Shift, and it's really changed my life for the better in many, many ways. Some of the things that I've learned through Katrice with 1 Degree Shift, as well as through our CARE work with our leadership. And I shared this with my team at AIR, and they said, you have to say these things. So we're all kind of on the same thing, and Jeremy, you'll probably be shaking your head with me. The number one thing in this work is you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because this is really challenging work. And there are some things that, that we talk about, or Katrice has brought up to us, and we're like, oh, I don't feel like touching that subject, but you have to do it because it makes you a better person and it makes the world a better place. Another thing is this is a really long journey. It's not going to be one and done or 1 year and we're finished. It's a lifelong journey. And Katrice is always reminding us too that, some of the changes we want to see, they're not going to be seen in our lifetime. We might just be seeing small little 1 degree shift, but if we can see that 1 degree shift, it will make our work worthwhile. And everyone's not at the same point. They're not at the same starting point, so you have to be patient with others and help them along their way. This is one of my favorites. You have to turn judgment into wonder. If someone says something to you and you're like, oh man, you really want to jump on that person and kind of attack them, be defensive, you have to stop and instead turn your brain around and say, wow, I wonder why they're feeling that way. And she's taught us how to say, I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to circle back to that because sometimes, and it's happened to me now, I say it to people if I get really upset and I know I'm going to say the wrong thing, I'll come back to you with an answer about that. And staff is starting to do that, and it's really a powerful tool to have. And one of our favorite things is hug the cactus. This is uncomfortable work, but we've got to do it, and everyone needs to join in. I'll talk a little bit now on November 5th when we had our PD day. My team started diving a little bit more into the work. We actually did some presentations the last part of last school year to kind of introduce things. And through the activities, we learned more about implicit bias, microaggressions, and the importance of names and pronouncing them correctly. It can mean the world to one student, and it can make them have a sense of belonging, rather than years and years of completely getting the names wrong or not caring or at least trying. So we had some breakout sessions with that. We had breakout sessions with poverty simulation. There's a website that you can go on to and it gives you so many dollars and it gives you, you can spend it this way or spend it this way and you find out how long you're going to last, which is very powerful. We did a character analysis and we talked about double consciousness where your identity is divided and it's difficult to have a united identity. And the movie that one of our care leaders based it on was Hate You Give, which was really a powerful movie. We talked about stories with adults looking back on their own education and things they've learned from their own experiences and how they've changed because of it and seeing things differently. We also talked about how does your culture impact your own behaviors? And all of this is really important. We had an article. Did you do the same article? Okay, we did an article. It's called Identity, Work, and Educational Justice. It was a really powerful article that we had our staff read it, and we had an amazing discussion. And one of the things that, the main thing it says to me in this article is you have to start with yourself and understand your own behaviors, your own beliefs, your own experiences before you can ever help someone else that's different from you. And I have an extra copy of this, so I brought it if you'd like to pass that along, please. And we can make copies. But it was very powerful, and the one thing that we got back from our survey from the staff was they wanted more time, which we were thrilled about because we only had time for 2 breakout sessions. We had 5 people presenting, and they wanted more time for more breakout sessions because they thought they were missing something. So that to us was a good job. So, Jeremy?
Thank you, Kim. I'm going to piggyback right where you left off. I have a couple slides in the presentation. Yeah. That piece about us diving deep within ourselves and understanding what makes us tick on all these different levels, that really speaks to ourselves as educators owning our responsibility to our students. And here we have the acronym for CARE, and that C is competency. And I think that letter C is our focus right now. And that piece of competency is going to allow us to do the work that we already do, advocating for our students, building relationships with them, empowering them. That piece of competency is going to allow us to do that at a higher level and to do it on behalf of an even larger number of students. I'll circle back to that in a second. Next slide. These are just some photos from our November 5th rollout at Maddox. Next slide, please. So one activity that we laid the groundwork for in November 5th, and then we kind of circled back and expanded on it this Friday at our staff meeting, was something from Katrice Quitter called 8 Things. And so we looked at these 8 pieces of who we are. And of course, this doesn't necessarily represent the sum total, but they are very, very personal and integral things to who we are. And we unpacked that and how some of these items are visible to everyone at first glance. Some of these are very invisible things that you would never know unless you got the time to meet someone and to learn who they are. Some of these pieces in each of our lives provide us with levels of privilege, and some of these have a dynamic of disadvantage that comes into play depending on the spaces that we're in. And some of these are very multi-layered, where maybe you experience both depending on the setting or depending on the day. But, sorry, I have my notes here on my phone. Next slide. One thing that we also wanted to show our staff is this visual of a journey. Just like Kim said, this is a very long process, not just in terms of the work that we want to do outwardly with our students and with our community, but as we go through these things, the research that we are kind of consuming, the deep discussions that we're having with each other, the introspection, you go through a number of emotions. Okay, you have that feeling of, am I ready for this work? You learn things, you have that sense of hope where there's so much good that we can do, but along the way, you have all these different feelings, even feelings like guilt and depression where we recognize that we missed the bar at some points in the past and we want to do better. So we wanted to kind of just put that out front and help everybody have that mindset as we embark on this journey. But I like that idea of that 1 degree shifts that Katrice Quitter is so known for. One piece of really compelling data that we shared from our school counselor is we have different events and traditions that we do, and so many times unconsciously, because it's the way that we've always done it, we might not realize that we're excluding certain people or making people feel like it doesn't necessarily apply to them or they can't be a part of it. So one example this year from our school year at Maddox is an event where we had dads or male figures from students' lives come to school and have breakfast. And in the past, we had names like Donuts with Dads, but we made a point this year to change it to Donuts with Dudes. And our school counselor shared with the rest of our team that we saw a 30% increase in participation just in 1 year. And so I think that speaks to the work that we're trying to do. We already do so much for our students, but this piece of cultural competency is going to allow us to do that at a much greater level for even more of our community. And that's the goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Betsy Ryan, who is going to talk about the second part of our cornerstone, which is the wellness.
May I?
Oh, sure. Did you already
Before,
get-
you, no, that's okay.
Do you want them, or do you want?
There, this is
Almost made it out.
just like everybody else. When I start talking and empty, it's all good. I just want to say that this is significant work that's taking place in our school district. And being a part of the conversations as the superintendent, working with groups of people within our schools, students, staff, what you see up here truly happens. And it happened in my experience in meetings. It happens in my experience. And I kind of get in that guilt place at certain times because I recognize that not only as an individual who has a life outside of the schools, there's a significant responsibility in our school systems and in us as professionals to be able to go through some of this so that we have a sense of how our system, how the things that we offer students, the classes we have, the way that we operate the schools, the processes, the procedures, how they are impacting those that we serve. And it's extremely important that we continue this conversation in our school district. I'm very proud of this work, and I think what's significant about all of the things that are happening with our cornerstones is administrators are not telling the story. It's the individuals who work with our students day in and day out who are defining the experiences for our students, who are actually educating the administrative staff on things we need to do to break down some of the barriers, some of the distractions that get between the teachers and those that serve students and the students. So I am very proud of this work. I'm excited about how this work is happening in our school district. And I think the most important part of this entire discussion is you cannot legislate this discussion. It must be something that is an individual growth. And the conversations that we're having district-wide are impacting our staff in very positive ways and can only impact our students in positive ways. The traditional thing is something happened, how do we discipline? Now we're not necessarily there as much as we used to be. We're talking more about things, and I think we're going to have much more positive influence on our school system and the way that we serve students. So before you guys get out of here, I want to thank you again for speaking this evening and for all the work that's taking place in this area. I'm really feeling good about this process. Thank you.
Also, the fact that every school has teacher leaders, correct?
Correct.
So this is, all across the district, every school, and so just, extremely thankful for those of you who volunteered to be teacher leaders, or who Melissa talked into being. But whatever, thanks for being leaders in our district.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Mrs. Ryan.
All right. Now I get to speak about wellness, and this is a topic that I'm quite passionate about, and I'm asked to speak and give you about 10 years of work in about 5 minutes. So I will do my best to give you a nice update. Our work is, first of all, to assemble a team of stakeholders in grades K to 12 from our community and schools to focus on a clear purpose and goals, to prioritize our initiatives and align our resources. So you may have seen in those initial slides, that's our purpose for this school year. Our wellness team is operating very similarly to how CARE operated last year with their advisory team. So this is a year for us to begin planning, to begin formalizing some of the many steps that we have to take and putting together a bigger structure where we can build capacity in buildings. And that will be our work as we develop and go into next year. We are working with partners for this particular group. Susan Graham from Child Focus, she's the Chief Administrative Officer for Child Focus, and Keith Klein from Grannis Hope, who is the Executive Director of Grannis Hope, and Jennifer Berryman, who is a suicidologist out of the University of Cincinnati and a researcher. These three are kind of like our guiding lights in terms of leading the wellness team forward. I wanted to share a little bit about the foundation work that has been transpiring over the last several years, and you're very familiar with it, I'm sure, from previous conversations that we've had at board meetings. But this is work that has really laid the foundation for how we're going to move forward. We have worked, as you know, with Child Focus, a strong partner with the school district that has grown to be able to serve 8 out of 9 of our buildings completely through 4 Child Focus therapists that are funded through us all at Forest Hills. The foundation is just recently supporting a new therapist that will be added to support a 9th building, as well as to alleviate some of the wait lists that are occurring in some of our buildings. The Hayden Foundation is also quite strong and has supported another therapist, and even Child Focus has provided some additional support, financial support, to be able to provide the child therapists for all of our buildings. So it's a strong partnership with Child Focus. Our work has primarily been led from our counselors in the past, our counselor work group that is focused primarily on wellness. They've built a very robust resource list with a number of resources that have been distributed to our parents, social networks, our district website. We've recently added information about vaping, substance abuse, and obviously suicide awareness. We have been very intentional about representation in many regional agencies or efforts across the area. We've participated in the Children's Hospital Mental Health Symposium, brain health meetings. We recently, Amy Maxwell and myself, attended a Children's Hospital transition team to support students who are hospitalized and transitioning back into school, and the work that needs to be done to make sure kids are safe and transitioning well. We've also been part of the Township Wellness Committee that is led by Mike Glenn through Anderson Township, and obviously it goes on in terms of the number of networking and resources that we've attempted to be connected to. The district has also completed a school or implemented a school connection survey to really look at the resilience of our kids and really look at how we're universally screening our students around social and emotional health. We're doing building needs assessments. You may have also learned about our TSIP process, which is a traumatic event crisis intervention planning that we implement across the district. We've done a number of work around risk protocols for students, again, that have been hospitalized and returning. That's been the work of our counselors. You also may have been aware of our August Nurturing Hearts and Mind, which was an all-day professional development event for all of our staff across the district to kick off our year, and that was intended to kick off our care and wellness work. We had numerous speakers from across the region, as well as keynotes, and even held a health fair to support our staff. Another huge important area that we added just this past year were our Hope Squads that started at Turpin and Anderson. And this is a peer suicide awareness program. This started in grades 9 through 12, where students nominated students to serve as Hope Squad members in their schools. We conducted student trainings, parent trainings. Our students were trained in QPR, and we also supported our high school staff around suicide awareness. All of our staff have also been trained in QPR all the way across the district. Now, especially through our Nurturing Hearts, we've shown social impact films, if you hadn't heard, like Angst, which is through IndieFlix, and Like, which is another social media impact film. We've conducted student and parent showings. And then last but not least, and it really isn't last, it goes on, is our suicide awareness program that we are conducting in both of our high schools called Lifelines. So we have had a number of activities and events that we've implemented. Much of those events have been more responsive in terms of Tier 2 and Tier 3, and what we do recognize is that we need to grow this work around systemically. And how are we looking at prevention for our students? How are we looking at wellness as a school district? and what are some ways that we can move forward consistently and with all those arrows moving in the same direction. So we've had a lot of discussion about that. So this year, as I mentioned, we formalized our wellness team under the partnership with the three people that I mentioned earlier. We have school counselors, school psychologists on this team, elementary and high school administrators, and obviously our partners. We've met monthly this school year. We've created a shared understanding of our, really looking at our MTSS framework, which I've talked about a few times through PBIS, and that behavioral and academic framework. And a lot of our work has been around how do we merge the two and become a more systemic, integrated framework to support the whole child. So there's been a lot of discussion about that. We've looked at the initiatives that we've started in the district, vetted them carefully to determine what are the steps we need to take moving forward so that it all jives and works together. And what initiatives do we need to possibly put on the back burner for a little bit? Just looking at prioritization. We spent a lot of time looking at the definition of wellness as a school district. And also looked at ways in terms of, are we looking at all these activities in terms of tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, so that we're making very intentional decisions for our kids here in Forest Hills, and again, so that all of our arrows are moving in the same direction as a school district, and it's meeting the needs of all of our students. Our next step this is a pretty exciting step, and we started this a little bit last year, is to begin to incorporate community stakeholders into this particular group for this year and begin these conversations and share the work that we're doing and look at ways to integrate. We have Mike Glenn, who is from Anderson Township, the Mental Wellness Committee, who's also a parent in our district. Prevention First is involved. Dee Stone has been involved all the way through in supporting us from Anderson Township. Julie Bissinger is asked to be part of this team as part of the foundation. Mrs. Barber has also expressed interest in being part of this team. We also have Beach Acres, Nikki Zellen, who's also a parent in our district. Mind Peace, Susan Shelton, Nancy Miller from 1 in 5. We're looking at also recruiting. I'll have to get Mrs. Buckaloo to help me recruit. She does that so well. Involving Anderson Township, we've also been interested in recruiting a faith-based representation or representative, and also including Children's Hospital and Anderson Mercy into these conversations, as well as it's been recommended that law enforcement or an SRO also be involved in this committee. So we've undergone a lot of work. I know my time is up, but a lot of our work is also around what are some ways that we can share the message positively and ensure that our parents and community understand what the work is in Forest Hills and how we are, a lot about what we're doing and providing those resources and education to them. So we really want to share that communication. There is a lot of parent communication or parent community education out there that is happening. As you may have learned, there's the speaker series that the foundation is also presenting throughout the school year. Those are important efforts that we want to make sure that we together can be a part of. This is a topic that we cannot solve or tackle on our own. It's a community, school district, everybody in effort. So we want to make sure that this be a very unified, integrated approach. You may be aware that K-12, the social emotional standards have recently been implemented and guidelines have been out there. We're exploring that as part of this group. We've also reviewed and assessed our needs related to the state student wellness funds, which will be allocated this year in two months this year, October and February, and the same for next year. They do require, as you know, this is from recent legislation back in July. They require partnership, they require that we submit a plan. They allow us to supplement existing programs that we're utilizing for mental health. We are permitted to supplant existing programs, so our hope is to also utilize funds to support our child focus efforts or our work with child focus. And the whole intent of the wellness funds, which I believe Mrs. Cropper shared a few meetings ago, is really to make sure that the intent is directed to students. So a lot of our work that we have looked at for the use of these funds has been for our Hope Squads, which have been previously funded and supported through our foundation, which has been very, very helpful and supportive to the school district. They've also supported our documentaries like Angst and Like, which can be very costly for the school district. We're hoping to utilize wellness funds in that regard. Advisor trainings that are used in Hope Squads, our TSIP efforts, and obviously I mentioned Child Focus. We've been doing a lot of training around QPR, which stands for Question, Persuade, and Refer, to support the recognition and awareness around suicide, and begin to really look at trauma-informed professional development for our staff so that we can look at ways to address those adverse experiences that are impacting our students. So got lots of plans in terms of that piece. I could go online. I would like to invite Ben up. Ben is a senior at Turpin High School. And we recently learned that Ben spoke at the Grannis Hope Butterfly Bash, which is a huge fundraiser operated by Grannis Hope. And this is a piece of the work, but a huge piece, because now we are involving grades 7 through 12. We've added NAGLE this school year. We've just begun the process of getting our Hope Squads ready. We're launching the week after Thanksgiving. Which is the 2nd. So there is a big week planned for all 3 buildings in terms of that launch and activities around that. And Ben spoke at the Butterfly Bash about his involvement in Hope Squad, and just everybody raved about it. And we wanted him to be able to present this to you as well. So, you ready? Yeah, okay.
First, I just want to say thank you to Mrs. Ryan for having me, and thank you to the Board of Education for allowing me to share my speech with you. So on October 24th, I received the Grannis Hope Inspire Award, which goes to select Hope Squad members who Grantis Hope sees as making an immense impact in their school and community. And having this award means a lot to me. It means that I'm someone that students in my school look up to, and that I'm a positive person who brightens the days of others around me. And it also acknowledges that I've made an impact on my peers and friends just by being a positive influence to them. I think that Hope Squad is important to schools for a few reasons. The biggest reason being that it establishes a network of students who others can go to if they might be considering of taking their life, or if they're just having a bad day. Some students might not feel comfortable talking to an adult about their mental health struggles, but they often talk to their friends about it, and they might post about them on social media. And just having that network of students that others can go to if someone ever should need someone to help them, just helps students know that they are understood and that they are not alone in this world. And there are many reasons why Hope Squads are important to me as well. It, first of all, allows me to be a blessing to someone, whether I'm helping someone find a trusted adult or holding the door for them in the morning. It lets me make a difference in my school and also in my community. And the second reason that it's important to me is that it gives me an important life skill. Hope Squad prepares me to handle a situation for a student in crisis, not just in high school, but also in college and even beyond secondary education, so that if and when a student in crisis comes to me, or if I find a student in crisis, I know what to do and I can have the resources for helping them seek a trusted adult. I believe that it's the little things that make someone's day. A smile, a simple hello in the hall, or even just wishing someone an amazing day no matter what they're going through. There are many people who come to school with a lot of burdens, and not just the textbooks and binders of all their classes, but it could also be the anxiety of a test in a hard class, or an upcoming performance. It could be the stress of a divorce, or the loss of a family member or a friend, or even just the emotional stresses of peer pressure and the process of trying to find your place in this world. When I perform an act of kindness, I feel that it relieves the person of some of the burdens that they might be experiencing. And I know sometimes that we don't need a grandiose event like a motivational speaker or a celebration day to help us feel better about ourselves. All we need is a simple act of kindness from someone. And this became evident when 2 students from Turpin High School took their lives this year. Many of my peers are left grieving and left with unanswered questions. So in the weeks that followed, I made an effort just to be a blessing to as many of my peers and teachers as I could. I made an effort to help my teachers as much as I could, and even to stay after school if they needed me. I sat with many friends at lunch and made sure that they were feeling okay and offered them help if they needed it. And I put myself out there because I wanted my peers to feel blessed, loved, and cared for, even in this difficult time that our school was going through. Finally, while I was very grateful for being recognized for my contribution, in reality, I've done nothing more than share simple acts of kindness that we are all capable of doing. Life needs to be lived not in seclusion, but rather in connection with others. We need to be aware and be willing to just do the little things that make life better for each other. Small acts of kindness and a willingness to give of ourselves, reach out, and help others actually saves lives. When we know we're not alone, we have hope. And this is what Hope Squad means to me. Thank you.
Mr. Wells, thank you for taking your time to with us this evening to have that one little special thing for us, because you've helped our meeting. So thank you very much. Helped us understand more, something we would not have been able to understand without your insight.
Thank you, Mr. Fruitman. Or Mr. Smith, sorry.
Sure. Anything, Betsy, any?
Well, much like the last discussion, I want to say I'm extremely proud, Ben, of you and your speech and the way that you have helped the school. As far as the school system, over my 35 years of being in education, I would have never believed that we would need to have all of the things that you mentioned, Betsy, in the comprehensive way that we work with so many individuals inside and outside of our schools to ensure that students have a successful day. From the small bits of kindness to the major things that we're doing as far as an organization is concerned. There are many, many things happening in our schools that are important, but wellness is a primary issue and has become over the years more and more of a primary issue. So I'm again proud of this work and what we're doing to step up and to work with those outside of the school system to ensure that our kids have the things they need to be successful. And Ben, there is no better example than you. So thank you very much for being here this evening.
I just have a
Thank
comment.
you and all the speakers. Go ahead.
I have a comment and a question. First of all, thank you to all of you who work on this, because as much as learning, innovation, and collaboration are important, if we aren't putting people in the world who are decent people who know how to use those things correctly, we're not educating the next generation well. So the work that we're doing here, I think, is well above what most districts do, and I thank you all who are hugging the cacti on a regular basis. Thanks for doing that. My question is, the work about CARE that you shared in the beginning, I'm often asked about that. That's the one thing that I repeatedly every few months get an email. What are we doing about this cultural competency and stuff? Are we making any progress after what happened last year? When are we going to be ready to start sharing that stuff a little bit more publicly? Like some of these things that were shared tonight, I think it'd be great for the community to know that we actually are making progress. It will take time to change because we're working on students. They have parents at home who aren't in our classrooms. So
Thank you, Elizabeth, and that's a great question. And during our advisory meetings, we will have them quarterly this year. That is something that is one of our subcommittees, is continuing to get that message more mobile and out to our community, so that way that the work that we're doing is elevated and a light is shined on that. So thank you.
I agree, because most people don't know yet. So that's great.
All right, Betsy, one of the things you mentioned, and I'm glad you did, was talking about getting the community involved. Because so often there are issues that involve children where the state will say, schools, you go fix it. And we don't have the resources, we don't have the time, we don't have sometimes the expertise. But this is clearly one that is being worked more broadly in the entire community, and that's the only way it's going to really work. So thank you. Again, thanks to all the presenters who shared and everybody who's doing such really great work on a really important issue. Thank you.
Great job, Betsy, thank you.
Thank you.